So this next sheet is from Sol, Adam, Lawrence and Tom, or Tommo. So, first thing, reform or revolution? Neither. Evolution. Basically, reforming this particular system, it wouldn't work. The structural dynamics of it are not geared towards any real life physical reference of what it means to actually survive in any meaningful way on a planet together. Revolution and revolt, well, again, revolution to what? What system do you propose to put in its place? One that's based on a particular political philosophy or ideology? We've tried that before. It doesn't, it's time to do something different.
Revolution also has connotations of violence and civil unrest, which we're not advocating in any way. But the idea of reform or revolution is built around a false dichotomy. It's not one or the other. So, yeah.
Yeah. You said there'd never be a utopian society, so what do you pose as a solution for the capitalist profit motive?
If there is one.
If there is one, yeah. So first of all, I'd say that what we live in is not capitalism. Capitalism is based on the idea that you make a business, and if that business doesn't meet needs, or someone comes along and does better than you, then you should be allowed to fall on your own sword and fail. That isn't what happened with the bank bailouts, I'm pretty sure. That doesn't look like capitalism to me. That looks like the sort of era where we had kings and queens in control of complete countries that did what the hell they told them, or they set their army upon you, which is pretty much where we're heading at the moment, which is one of the reasons we're here, of course. You live in a plutocracy, and there's a very interesting document you can check out here called The Plutocracy, which is a document that was released by Citigroup that basically said some very revealing things about how the 1% feel about society. Most wealth generation is up there. Most money moves up there. They're not too fussed about what happens down here as long as we keep on turning up for those jobs that generally give the false idea that the economy is still working to some degree. Essentially, they're not too bothered. It's a very revealing document. You should definitely check it out. In terms of profit, I would argue about profiting you, doing what makes you happy.
Where is the social profit in this current system? Where does that come into play? Where is the human reference? There isn't one. It really isn't. Monetary profit is inherently self-maximizing.
And yet it's based on something that's not real. This is why money is essentially a faith. You put your money in the bank with good faith. That's what people say. It even says it right there, and it says on the American bills, "In God we trust." It's a religion.
Well, the very word credit comes from the same root of to have faith or to believe. It's grown out of the same root word.
So all of this is on faith that you'll pay it back, and as a means of exchange. Money, of course, in the capitalist system that Adam Smith proposed, is supposed to have a direct correlation to the resources, and the resources are not supposed to spoil. You're supposed to leave enough over, and all of these sorts of stipulations that if Adam Smith turned up today, he'd say, "You're not doing capitalism. What are you talking about? It's nothing like capitalism." So that's an even more thing, that all the isms, the capitalisms, the socialisms, the communisms, they're irrelevant. They are irrelevant to a species meeting human needs, which can be objectively tested through the scientific method as to what human needs are and how you can meet them. But we can't meet infinite wants. We can't meet everybody wanting a 150 bedroom mansion with gold plate toilet seats and a Meerjet on your front lawn. It can't happen. And that's where our value shift has got to happen. If you have that value, it's unrealistic if you want to survive with fellow members of your human race on a planet together. It's unrealistic. So let's say, next question, let's say your Zeitgeist movement becomes reality. First of all, the Zeitgeist movement isn't what's going to become reality. The Zeitgeist movement is an educational thing. We're the first anti-institution institution. As soon as people get this train of thought, we're gone, mate. I don't want the Zeitgeist Movement to exist forever. I want a resource-based economy. Very different things. But let's say it becomes reality, which essentially is what you mean with the resource-based economy. What form would government take, or what form of government would it be, or form, sorry. No form of government. Cybernation, basically.
Yeah. As James said in his talk, we have always and forever lived in a dictatorship of the natural laws. Any system that we put in place to distribute goods and resources, which is not inherently connected to those goods and resources, is
decoupled.
Yeah, it's
decoupled. It's decoupled from reality. It doesn't hold its benchmark in the real referented world that you live in.
For example, the law of supply and demand is not a law. It's not an absolute law. It's got no testable hypothesis. You can't falsify the law of supply and demand. It was made a law by the very definition of its own terms. It's a circular argument. So, yeah.
And so basically the cybernation aspect of it is the global resource allocation system that's heterarchical, so that's holographic, like the internet basically is always the example I use, where it's a holographic group of people coming together and contributing to a central information intelligence source, and actually that is its self-defense mechanism because of the fact it's spread out. The minute you've got something like that where no one knows how to keep the lights on, quite frankly, if oil isn't a reality because energy isn't abundant, then when the lights turn off, you're buggered. The system we're talking about has an energy spread load, so that basically energy goes down in one sector, it can be taken up in another. So its self-defense mechanism is in the very fact that it is spread out rather than hierarchical. So that's the nature that government would take. It would also take the aspect of technological teams that would come together, that there's a certain problem in the world that needs to be solved, like a water pollution problem or whatever it might be. People who show capability in that area come together to work on things, just like scientists come together to work now. But it has to be actually accredited. You actually, it's not in terms of marks or anything, but you actually have to be able to prove that what you're talking about works, and that's where people will who come together to do these things. That's where the control benchmark will be in the decision-making method you use approach to planetary concern, and this is where government really comes into its own. What decision-making method do you have in play to meet human concern? That's the question. Not who makes the decisions. What method of decision, by what method of decision-making are you arriving at your conclusions? We don't use the scientific method in this way to arrive at these conclusions for human need because we live in a world of profit. And scarcity and such things, or at least contrived as it is now, because we don't. But political philosophy, as mentioned earlier, is really just decoupled from reality. It's not relevant to meeting human needs. Obama takes a plane over a sort of, I don't know, a hurricane-swept area in Florida or wherever it might be. He looks out the window and says, "It's terrible. Well, what are we going to do about it?" Well, I don't know. I'm not educated in building or roads or plumbing or human behaviour or sociology or anything. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm pretty much just here from Goldman Sachs. Why are these people in these positions? They've got no education in how to run a society. They've got no understanding of human behaviour intrinsically. They've got no education. They don't know what they're doing. And yet these people run our world. It's madness. So, question 4: do you think that this is a realistic solution for the capitalist profit motive? And if so, how long would
the Reformation take?
Yeah, the Reformation take.
Conservative estimates, 10 years to change the way our current world works into a resource-based economy. Solution for the capitalist profit motive. If I understand the question correctly, you can't have a solution to the capitalist profit motive that still exists within the monetary framework. Long-term sustainable solutions just don't happen. There's no reinforcement mechanism for people to do this kind of thing. So
yeah, you can't look for a solution inside the thing that caused the problem in the first place. Einstein put this very well, where he said, we can't solve the problems of today by using the same method of thinking we used when we created them. Think about that for a second. You know, if you go to a door and it doesn't open because it's locked, and you go get a key and it doesn't work, I would suggest using a different key. I wouldn't suggest using the same one. So the point is that's the precise value system we have to shift from. And when we do, and people say we don't want to play your game anymore, you know, it's a silly game. Yeah, so that's all it is, and we don't view it as relevant or, you know, anything anymore, and we're not going to participate. Non-violent participation, basically say we're not going to participate, and we step back from it. Then we'll start the transition then, but only then. How could we otherwise? There are transitionary steps. I just want to briefly outline them as well. There's the building of a test city, in which we would invite people to come and see the test city and live in it and stuff, and then from there scale that out. And we have had interest from various countries and things from around the world of doing such ventures as this. But that's obviously the chances of getting the whole world to just come together and agree to it and land in resource-based economy, you know, tomorrow is totally unrealistic. It's not going to work that way, and we're not naive enough to suggest it should. And there's one other thing that's very important to mention. If you took all the people from this world and you dumped them in the one that I outlined in my talk at the school, they'd mess it up in 24 hours. They're just not. Their values are just not adjusted to live in such a world. And the irony of it is when their values are adjusted, they will. And that's it. It's a value adjustment. There's no other way of putting it, because it's not possible to build it and put people in it, and it's not possible to build it without people changing their values. So the only option left on the table is to change the values. So yeah, I think that deals with all of the questions on this particular sheet. I hope that answered your points, but once again and always, if it didn't, we're very sorry. There's perhaps a better answer waiting for you at our website. Thanks very much though for listening.